Hi, I'm Tom Driscoll from Swampscott, Massachusetts. I'm here as a father and a parent of I have two sons with choroideremia. Here with my wife, Tara, who's obviously a carrier, and our daughter, Callie, who's 15, and she's not a carrier. My sons are 28, and that's Thomas, and 25, that's Robert. They were diagnosed by Dr. Sorkin, who's a pediatric ophthalmologist locally. From what I understand, although I wasn't there, he did an examination of the younger one for something unrelated. I think they were looking for astigmatism. Looked in his eyes, then he asked Tara to sit down, and he looked in hers, and then said he has to see your other son, my other son, and so he went in, and I think the doctor was a little taken back, and then he sent us into Mass Eye and Ear with Dr. Burson in Boston. My reaction to it all, and I think obviously with my wife too, was a bit of shock because we did not know, through various reasons, we just didn't know Tara was a carrier. So obviously it was a complete shock. I mean, you don't, your initial reaction is, my kids are going blind, which isn't necessarily untrue, but you don't know what that means. And at the time, there was very little um, out there in terms of research or any hope. And this Dr. Burson from Mass Eye and Ear, although he was considered one of the leading, if not the leading expert, had no answers and basically told us what was going to happen. So yeah, it was pretty devastating. Well, I think when we came to know the research aspect of this and this whole organization through Corey McDonald, um, I think there may have been a pamphlet at Dr. Burson's office. We reached out to him, and if anyone knows Corey, you just reach out to him, and then all of a sudden you're related to him. And the first time I met him, he showed up unexpectedly at my office, and someone came and said, "Mr. Driscoll, there's someone out the counter who says he's here to see you. I think he's blind." And I said, "Well, who else could that be?" And that's how I met him. And then we went to our first conference back in Baltimore. And I don't know how, that was pretty soon after their diagnosis. So, as my wife would say, that was the conference that we basically cried the whole time. I think the Choroideremia Research Foundation has become kind of a family, you know. Um, we went to, this is our one, two, three, four, fifth, sixth conference. So we missed a few. We didn't go to Seattle. We didn't. There are a couple we didn't go to, and I don't know if that was probably the kids were young. You know, it was a little bit harder when the kids were younger. But no, it's a great way to see people that we know. You know, we do communicate pretty well. We've been on the board. I'm no longer, and Tara's still on the board, but she was treasurer for many years. So even if I'm not on the board, I get to hear the conferences on. They're usually by phone conference call. So you know, the whole gang. We all kind of know them. You know, the families that we see here. You know, we I guess keep up with some probably more than others, and my wife probably more than anyone. I'm probably more friendly with the older guys who were affected. I've gone to several conventions like ophthalmology, optometrists, and worked the booth with them. I've traveled to Europe with Eric Hartman twice, to Germany to a conference. I'm going to San Diego for the optometrist with a couple of guys. So that's really, my relationship has not been so much with the families, but we are. I think it's good to have people who are going through the same thing. We do find that there's a wide range of how people react and how they deal with it. I think everyone has to kind of deal with it how they want to deal with it. But I think we all serve as somewhat of a support group. Um, that, you know, and, I mean, I do think it is difficult to come every 2 years and see how our friends' vision has, you know, diminished. My sons are still pretty stable. They drive. I mean, their friends know. They're very good with their friends. You know, obviously, I know. I see things. They're both competitive athletes. Played lacrosse right through college. You know, but he's watching them as a father, and I coach them. I can see little things of how they adapt. Very good athletes in great shape, and they both work. And One has moved to Savannah. It was a teacher, Spanish teacher, is now transitioning. I don't know where. I don't think he just doesn't want to be a teacher anymore. And the other boy works for an organization called Harlem Lacrosse, which contracts with the Boston school system. So he tutors, he mentors, he coaches the game of lacrosse, which isn't very widespread in the inner city. And he works in probably the toughest high school in the city of Boston. They're both amazing kids. Well, that's the future for them is what it is for everyone at this point. We don't have a treatment, but so I hope I try to, little things with us. It was big for their to be educated. They both have language skills. They're both fluent in Spanish. Because I do think eventually they have to rely a little more on their verbal. They're not going to be carpenters. They're not going to, it's we always kind of want them to pursue, and it's difficult because, like anyone, you can't tell your kids what to do, but we do want them to realize there are going to be limitations. I'm always thinking, to be in some type of job where they're going to make accommodations, although everyone has to make accommodations. Certain businesses or certain professions, it would be more natural and easier. So, that's my focus, which, again, they have to do what they want. I hope that they can continue to not progress too quickly, but as everyone knows, you just don't know. Robert has actually is in a study, Spark, out of Boston, and he actually goes in next week for his follow-up. And with him, the way I think about it with him is he hasn't really lost as much sight in his good eye, so that's kind of how they have to balance it out. So we don't know where he stands on it, but everyone else is saying that it's not great results. My son Thomas wasn't able to get into one. He has another condition with his eye, with a macular hole, which he had to have repaired. So he's got a bad complication to a bad disease, which is unfortunate. But I don't know what the future is. I can prepare them, and they seem to understand it because they're here and they see their brothers. That I don't know what it's going to be. I hope. You never know. It's extremely important, and part of the importance isn't just for raising the funds. I think you do feel a very positive, you get a very positive feel and a good feel that you're raising money. I do think, and it will not come to any surprise, I'm not really in the business of this, but I'm looking for people that we can be bigger. And, I set up a fundraiser every conference. So I just set it up a couple hours ago, and I'm up to $1,000, and I do it all through social media every 2 years. Yeah, that's nice. I raise $3,000 to $5,000. But I know there's ways out there that we need to get bigger. We need to get people more connected with some large fundraising capabilities. I think, to me, we're small, and yeah, that $5,000 helps, but I'd really like it to be 500,000, and I just don't know how to get there. That's what we need. Well, the conferences I've gone to in Europe is an organization based out of Germany, similar to this. It's a little different, and it includes some other eye diseases. So we really go there as somewhat ambassadors for our organization, to lend them support, to hear what they have, because they don't have all the same people there. Some actually they do. You go there and you'll see the same doctors and stuff, but they're different, and you try to develop that same family with them. There's some things that are very interesting, for example, in Europe, which I didn't know. My little fundraising aspect, I'm not again, it's not the big fundraiser, but I'm like, okay, we're here, what can we do? And I found out that it was very difficult. For me to go out, I could go out in that group right now, and even though they all give, I could go raise a couple thousand from people that don't have it, right? But over there, and I learned that they're not used to that. They're used to the government, regardless of what country they're in, their governments pay for so much, and so they don't quite understand that we're just raising money for research. It's just a different thing, and that caught me by surprise. I guess everyone's really impressed with me this time. They've all said to me, which is that I'm not the same guy that they met. early on, and I was angry, Tom. Um, and I just, I flew out to San Francisco soon after the first conference because a couple of the guys said, "Oh, come out and work the ophthalmology." And I was in the booth, and I would literally scream and chase down these ophthalmologists who like kind of poo-pooed us that they don't know him. And I would be like, how would you like to have two sons? I was like, until Corey and Artman would be like, Tommy, you can't beat him up. I'm like, okay. So I've changed. And now, when I go to these different things, the last one I was at was in Boston, and it was the optometrist, which is a whole new venue for us because the reality is optometry, although more basic, they're still the first line, and they're going to see it. And I just worked that crowd, and I was like a huckster, just handing stuff out. And because there's so many students that are learning, and I'm like, hey, you got to know this. This is what we're looking for. We need your help. They were very receptive, but as a different, I'm a different guy. I understand that I could be angry, but I can't let everyone know. You can't do that with everybody. It's weird as a father because you'll never, regardless of what you do, and no matter how wonderful you are, how loving and sensitive you are and supportive, which I think I am, but you always have that. There's always that. This isn't my disease, but I'm dealing with it. It's a strange feeling because I would never not have my kids. I would never not have my wife. I love them all, but you always have this, and it's not to make it about yourself, but every human has a feel like this. Why me? Okay, I have to focus on who am I to say that? Because my sons, the only ones that in my world have a right to say that. But I think everyone has that feeling. My two sons are the bravest kids in the world, and they're like, sometimes people in society and even your friends, they don't quite get it because you don't see it in them yet. And when you tell them that your sons are going blind, well, can they wear glasses? When they hear Choroideremia, do they wear special glasses? I said, no, my sons are losing their vision. Well, it's not that they want to diminish it; they don't quite understand it. And so, but there's one interesting thing that helped me through this is I see the people here, I see my sons, I see what they can do, and then I'll see a parent with a horribly handicapped child that's never going to have even close to a normal life. And I feel so bad for them. And I realize, who am I to feel bad? My sons are going to lose their eyes. They can walk, they can talk, they can hear, they can do so much. And this poor child is never going to walk, may not even, and the horror that we see with other people and their disabilities, it weirdly makes you appreciate that your sons are only losing their vision, which is hard to tell, but that's an important thing, but it could be worse. I can't tell them that, but I think they probably understand that. But that's been a growth, or no, it's been an awareness that I've developed over the last probably close to 20 years or so that, there's a lot more out there, and our kids are going to be okay.